Good evening. I'm going to speak to you today about how to train your dog, the best way, the best methods to use. We all know the arrival of a puppy can be a very exciting time in somebody's life. You know, the excitement, the anticipation. Training your new friend must be a high priority in order to teach them how to properly behave, and it also saves you the headache of having to clean up the messes and the lack of behavior that your new puppy might have. In order to help your dog become successful with training, it calls for some type of a reward system. Dogs are like children. They feel good when they get rewarded, but you must know how and when to reward your dog, or else they will always think they need a special treat for doing what they're told. In breaking that down, there's two types of reward behaviors. There's praises and treats. You'd want to give your dog a treat if they did something really extra special, like maybe if you took them out in a public setting at the park and they just did awesome for you. You'd want to make sure, maybe bring some treats for an occasion like that. But for your training, you don't always want to give them treats because you want to give them more praise. I mean, just like a kid, when your child goes to the bathroom, when you're potty training them, are you going to take them to Chuck E. Cheese for that every time? I mean, your praise is just as good. So you want your dog to become more familiar with your praise and keep the treats for the special occasions, because you can always give them praise. You may not always have a treat. A reward is something that should be really cherished by your pet. Praise is something to be given more than treats, especially during training. It becomes as much of a reward for you as it is as your praise is to your dog when you finally get them to start learning the commands and doing what you want them to do. But this also takes a lot of patience. Your training must be short but consistent, and that way you don't burn them out to where they think that their training is becoming more of a punishment, to where they more or less try and run from you when their training occurs. You need to always remind yourself, be realistic and flexible and very fair when working with your pet. Short basic commands are always a good way to get started with it. You got to have a lot of patience because it requires a lot of repetition. Just as a child when they're learning the language for the first time or whatever, they have to get used to what it is that you're telling them to do. Otherwise, they look at you and all they hear is a sound and see you pointing, but they have no clue what you want them to do. So it takes a lot of repetition and a lot of patience working with your animal to get it trained. With a dog, they do not listen to the word itself. They more or less, the sound becomes a familiar sound to them. Like, for example, with my German Shepherd, I can say come, and she knows that means come, and she'll come sit on my feet. But also, if I'm clearing my throat, sometimes I'll go like that. It sounds like the come sound, so she'll come over as well and sit on my feet. So it's more or less they become familiar with the sound of the word. In conclusion, if you spend a lot of quality time in training your dog, they will be more likely to follow your commands. If you only spend an hour or two a day with them, and expect them to fully understand and remember everything you've taught them, it's probably not going to happen. You've really got to devote some time to them. By using the proper reward system and devoting your attention to them, you can easily train your dog to be the perfect best friend. So that's what I have as far as training your pet. Does anybody have any questions? Well, thank you for your time.
Yay! Good job. Good job.
Thank you. There you go. Trying to brush.